Welcome to Access, thanks to Crypto.com. Matthew, Lloyd and Damian Barrett with you. We have in front of us, Slaughto, an intriguing grand final. Geelong versus Brisbane Lions.
We do, Damo. I have great respect and admiration for both clubs, for their ability to just keep getting themselves back up there. Brisbane, with all they've dealt with this year with injuries, and Geelong, they just keep getting the job done. We've questioned their fixture. Did they have an easy draw? But they've been so convincing in their first two fights.
We're going to pull it apart. All the key battles that now loom, and equally some problems for the two teams that lost the preliminary finals on the weekend just gone. But so many things go into getting a club into a grand final again. And these two men coaching these two clubs, Lord, I think the preparedness for both of them to change is a key ingredient in this. They've changed themselves over the journey. They've forced change in others. They change in season. They change in quarter. They even force people to change on the run. And they're back there again for those reasons.
They are, Damo, and I said they're very different though. That's what I like about these. Chris Scott, the strategic master, and I think Chris Fagan's the most amazing people's coach, but he's also, the respect's gone up for him over the last 2 or 3 years, and he's very good strategically as well.
They've both experienced success on grand final day, and they've both experienced losses on grand final day as coaches. They're back there again, and they know the tension that now lies.
We felt as a team that we couldn't sort of get any redemption for that loss in the 2023 grand final until we actually were able to beat Collingwood in a final. We got a little bit tonight, not the same as a losing grand final performance, but still an opportunity to go and have another go at winning another one.
Everyone in the world, even in business, preaches stability, but there's no point keep going with the same thing if it's not working. So we just feel like it's been working for a decent period of time now. So that gives us confidence that we're going to be in pretty good shape to give it a real shake next week.
There's a quiet confidence in those comments post-match after the prelim finals, isn't there, Lordo? And that's the reason why. We go back to 2019 and we've compared it from that moment onwards because Chris Fagan's first 2 years at Brisbane Lions were lower ladder finishes. He only had 5 wins in both 2017 and 2018. But to now make 7 consecutive finals series and a 3rd consecutive grand final, it does stack up very, very nicely against the man who was ultimately the benchmark in this game.
Yeah, both teams in their prelims didn't have it their own way. Both were down in their games, but they both have such strong core senior players and leaders who we're also going to get to shortly, who stood up big time, and they have such trust and faith in their game plans that they got the job done and deserve to be here. Then
you get to the captains of the club, and Brisbane have got 2 of them. We'll focus on Harris Andrews only for this part of our conversation today, Lotto, but we'll start with Paddy Dangerfield, whose leadership of this club post the 2022 grand final win when Joel Selwood stood down has been quite extraordinary. There's a home and away Dangerfield and there's a finals Dangerfield, and we saw the more destructive, explosive one in this game.
Yeah, 31 disposals, 3 goals, 20 contested possessions, 13 score involvements and 8 clearances for Dangerfield. And what I loved about Dangerfield's game was when they weren't playing overly well early, he was just kamikaze, like we know he can play, so he was just willing himself. And
even getting that loose ball there.
Yeah, he did it time and time again. These whole clips are just not his goals, but they're more so about these moments you're talking about, willing himself and saying he was too big for some of these Hawthorn midfielders. We're going to finish with one of the goals here where Scrimshaw just let him go, where he just gets back on it. But they couldn't go with him. Josh Ward, even Newcombe, they were smaller sort of midfielders, just weren't good enough to go with him.
Is it just a matter now of this late stage of his career just to get him through the home and away season as best you can and then just let him cut loose in these games?
Yeah, that's what you love about Geelong. They've got the ability and the depth to cover off that they can afford, to have that luxury where they rest players a fair bit right throughout the year to have them cherry ripe for this, and which I think Geelong do better than any other club to have their players ready come September.
Even at this late stage, he looms as largely as anyone, doesn't he, going into Saturday, as does Harris Andrews of the Lions. To me, look, the player of the final series to this point, I think he was arguably the finals player last year as well. He controlled this game on the weekend against Collingwood at various stages when the Pies were thrusting.
So intimidating. I talk about him every week about that he's like a forward. So it'd be like playing on Jeremy Cameron, even though he's a defender. So you're so nervous. So Shannon Neale will be nervous because he'll go, how do I get a kick myself and stop him from being the best man on the ground? So that's what he did well. And I thought Geelong played him really smartly the last time they met. So this is what Geelong did last time. So we see those long high balls going in. Geelong kicked long high balls early in the game but then they adjusted and said, how can we lower our eyes and not kick long high balls to take him out of the game? So that's where they were very, very smart after half time compared to the first half, and I thought it was a big factor in the game.
And Collingwood wasn't able to do that. We'll touch on their problems in a few moments' time. Look, I think he should have been All-Australian captain this, Lordo. He's been an all-time Australian ×3. The risk v reward, it's always at play going into a grand final. Does Lachie Neale play in your eyes? This has been the most public strategy from Lachie himself. He was doing interviews last weekend in hyperbaric chambers just to let the world know that he's ready to go again. Got through a major training session on the weekend, and with Jared Berry's likely absence, it does seem he's going to play.
If you've got any percentage of doubt, if Chris Fagan does, you don't play him. So I think he just needs to be exceptional on the training track. So I'm talking Tuesday, Thursday, particularly Tuesday. So by Thursday, you want the team settled and you want Lachie to know that he's playing. But
get it all over and done with
by Wednesday. So Chris has to make the tough call one way or the other on Tuesday that you're either in or you're out, dependent on a massive, massive session, putting him through one of the more rigorous sessions of all the players.
He deserves every second he's got. He's a two-time Brownlow medalist. He's a club grade. He's going to be an AFL grade. He already is. And those people around him, as well as himself, you'll hear from him now, and also Chris Fagan, his coach, and Danny Daly, the footy boss.
I think I've ticked every box so far that I've had to, and it is exciting, but trying to keep a lid on it a little bit. There's still a couple of hoops to jump through, and I've got to get the old boy to pick me too, so I've got to try and get in his ear pretty early in the week.
It's looking more positive than negative at the moment. I didn't think he'd be a chance to play, but I think he is a chance to play. One thing I do know is you can't take unfit players into grand finals. It just doesn't work, so we'll make a common sense decision.
He certainly surprised us. He surprised the medical team, and he's well in advance as where he should be in terms of that injury. So he's got to get through a training session Tuesday. If he gets through that and then one on Thursday, there's probably 90% chance that he's ready to go, yeah.
Lordo, to move this situation around, Lachie Neale's easier now to navigate with Jared Berry being out. They can't pick Berry. His shoulder popped now for the second time in 4 matches. I know it got through 2 finals, but it popped against Collingwood, and he's not going to have the confidence to tackle in the grand final should he play. So he's out, the way I see it right now. I think it's a no-brainer to actually pick Lachie now. Yeah. I reckon it was line ball if Berry was right.
Yeah, I think you'll be right, and that's the way it goes. But let's not forget, Lachie was injured before he did his calf. So he had
with a groin.
With a groin, and so he hasn't had much continuity, and they are coming up against Dangerfield, Bailey Smith, Max Holmes, Tom Atkins, so there's nowhere to hide here.
So you're not as sold on him playing?
No, I'm not as sold. The more I'm thinking about it, the more Chris Fagan has to understand. I'm sure they will pick him if he gets through training, but it gives me more confidence about Geelong with some of the doubts Brisbane have going into this grand final.
They've got their own availability issues, obviously the Cats, and it comes in the form of Tom Stewart missing for HIA reasons after this tackle from Mabior Chol. He's out. The new protocols that are in place, the first time a concussed player from a prelim final misses a grand final. Mabior Chol given 3 matches by the Match Review office for a tackle that was deemed legal on the night. I would argue that, and I think if Hawks got through to the grand final order, I think the system would allow him to play, be it through the tribunal or appeals tribunal system. Park that for the side. Is it just a matter of Zach Guthrie just having to play a little bit more taller, so to speak, in that defensive setup for the Cats to cover for Stewart?
Yeah, I think they cover really well anyway. So it's gone from just Stewart being the intercept king to, say, it can be Guthrie 1 minute, then it can be Connor O'Sullivan, then it can be also Tom De Koning, so Sam De Koning. So I think here is Guthrie. I thought they adjusted really, really well. So when Henry was sore injured, went off for a while, then you have Stewart out with concussion. But I just thought they ramped up their pressure as a team and they look so comfortable. I know it's a different story. They've got to start afresh and Brisbane can plan for it. But on the run, it's the hardest time to adjust and they did it really well. And I think Guthrie's a star of the competition.
So just go with what you've got rather than trying to rejig the whole back line.
Yeah, that's absolutely, And do not flirt with the next point is Blixarves. You do not flirt with putting him back into defence because I think he has been influential. He's been in my best 5 players in the first 2 finals. So I thought that he was better than Lloyd Meek. Some of this ability to rove, he's like a ruck rover, and I think he intimidates you. So not with the physical stature, but his ability at ground level again, I'd back him over Darcy Fort and Oscar McInerney.
Even though it's a double pronger.
Even it's a double, because he's as fit as anybody in the competition. So I think it's an absolute weapon. So keep him there and not moving.
So in saying that, you're saying do not consider bringing Reece Stanley back, who by all reports will have recovered from a hamstring injury.
No, I'd be looking at, say, either these, it could be a Jed Buse who gets an opportunity to join the defence or something like that. So Stanley has played a fair bit of footy, so they have to look at potentially who's AFL ready from the next best.
Yeah. The beauty about this Final 8 system, Lordo, is that you can have the chance as a losing qualifying finalist to still meet the team that beat you in that game in the grand final. It's happening in this 2025 series. In that game, Hugh McCluggage had one of the worst games of not just this season, but his career when Oisin Mullen went to him and destroyed him.
Yeah, he did. And well done to Hugh McCluggage, the way he's responded, because, it was all the talk, but he's since then, he's gone on, he got 37 disposals on the weekend and was just dominant, best player. I thought he was awesome against the Gold Coast Suns as well. But, yeah, I'm sending straight Mullen straight to him.
Just go again.
I think you go again. Like, I have toyed with Ashcroft, and just because of how good he's been, but I think you send him in. But full credit to McCluggage. His knee even looked banged up, but I think it was just a bit of a loser's limp in that first game because of the way Mullen got a hold of him.
And what you said there about Mullen too, it's basically Chris Scott's mantra this year that without being arrogant about saying this, and I'm paraphrasing what he has said now regularly later in the season, our best we know to be the best when we get it going. And so Mullen beating McCluggage in that game is what you'd stick with.
Yeah, I would. And where Chris Scott, I love him, is because it wasn't the right matchup to get on the weekend in that game. So he sent him to Wizard Watson. And Watson had the worst game he's had for the season. So it's just horses for courses. Yeah.
Now, there's a source of your Crypto.com bold call today that is Brisbane Lions related, Lordo. It's the Norm Smith medalist of last year, Will Ashcroft.
It is, and it's Chris Scott. You can't go to sleep on that man, Will Ashcroft. And everyone's going to say, of course. But the question is, can you have three negators in your side? So we've gone with, you've got O'Connor and Rayner.
Yep.
You've got Mullen and obviously McCluggage. But can Atkins also go to that man Ashcroft, because he's having one of the great final series, and we just see here he is on Long. Long wasn't up to it. Long had a struggle through the final series, and Ashcroft is kicking goals. So he had 30 disposals in the first final against Geelong, but he's kicked 4 goals in his last 2 finals. So 28 and 2 goals won against the Suns, and 20 goals and 2 goals won.
And the confidence to go for this goal right here at this key point of the game, Lordo, it just goes to show what this guy's about.
Yeah. So, and he's a Norm Smith medalist, so he's a big game player. He's trained in a way. The Ashcroft boys, I've seen them in action since juniors. They have a different mindset. They've had their mindset on this since they were 12, 13 years of age. And they just can't let him roam free. But that's the advantage of having Neale, McCluggage and Rayner and all these superstars in your team. He's been getting off the chain a bit too much.
These 35 and 6-year-olds, Lordo, in this grand final. Paddy Dangerfield, one of them. Dane Zorko, another. We saw the best and worst of him in the one game against Collingwood on the weekend. He contributed to 3, maybe even 4 of the first Collingwood goals in this match, Lordo. But he never lost confidence. He just went off the ground for a period of time, regrouped, took a breath, had a drink, went back on, and in the second half was as crucial as any player on the ground. And he looms that way for this game coming up on Saturday.
He's so important. You just see, he doesn't have a great half. Collingwood are in front. He has an awesome second half. Brisbane win the game. So, yeah, he's a superstar. He and Wilmot have the licence. So Wilmot's very good as well. And they can just go. Make a mistake, so be it. But they'll win this grand final through their ball movement, which Geelong was able to stop in that first final.
Yep. Let's get to the losing preliminary finalists, Lordo, because there's big stories to come out of both. We'll start with Collingwood. The preparedness that club had to stick with their older players, it got them so far, it only got them to half-time lead of the prelim final. They fell away, and they fell away very, very badly in the third quarter at stoppages, didn't they?
Yeah, let's take a listen to what Craig McRae had to say about that.
Credit to Brisbane, outstanding, really. Like their clearance work in that third quarter was just dominant. We couldn't try all the different things, and they were just too dominant around that part of the game. 5 goals or something. They might have kicked 6 for the third quarter.
So there was one moment that changed the whole game for me, and it was soul-destroying when you just cough up a goal like this. So we've got Zach Bailey. So here he is. So you look at that score, 13 points up, and they just let him, the seas just parted, and watch him just go through Zach Bailey, and you go, how does that happen? I saw the vision went to Craig McRae afterwards, and he was just going, how does that happen? We are the best defensive team, and it just kept going on. And this is Cameron Rayner. So he's ducking out the back, and yes, it's slightly cheating, but Brisbane win the stoppage, and here he is. So,
and his timing on this,
it was absolutely brilliant. Like I love Rayner. He's just a final specialist as well. And then you've got McCluggage, just another one. So too much time, too much space. Ashcroft, he's caught up in it, wrong side, lets him get through. So they just had so many moments where normally they'd be better than that, where they let themselves down, and that's in itself what costs them why they're not here on grand final day.
Do you predict a fall now for the Pies?
I do, unfortunately, yeah, because, and just on that, the reliance on Scott Pendlebury, like here they are, like just to see them break down at an area when their general came off, he's like a security blanket. And I just was talking to you before we came on saying maybe they shouldn't let him take part in pre-season and shouldn't let him speak and make others do it, because when he went off the ground, it was the biggest area where they fell away, and I think they rely on him too much. And I think the age demographic of it, this was their chance, this was their year. I admire them for going for it, but I can't see many of them improving from here. It's Nick Dacos, Josh Dacos. I don't see too many young blokes that jump out at me that are going to take them to a prelim, to a grand final next year.
Losses in these games, prelim finals, they're brutal, aren't they? You've just summarised Collingwood's season in that, and it fell away for them in the second half of that particular game, as it did for Hawthorn. Now, ultimately, they had a great year, but they fell short quite dramatically in a prelim final.
They did, and you know, guys will have to sleep on this over a long pre-season. So Watson had a poor grand prelim, Weddle. John Newcomb didn't have a fantastic day. Josh Ward had 8 disposals. So many didn't play very well. And I thought Sam Mitchell then started to try too much. So I thought you can do some things, but I just didn't understand this, what Weddle was doing way out there on the logos. I'm not sure.
They're just trying to get him into the game.
Yeah, but I thought they need to. And then suddenly to get Weddle into the game, they moved him back. So suddenly Ginnivan's on a wing when he's been a wonderful forward. So he was on a wing. Then Jath comes on. He becomes the wingman. And I just thought there was too much going on.
So isn't that largely what got them to this game?
But then this guy, he's never played defence in his career, yet he's in the backline, Damo. So
I think he just got lost in the end. He had to follow close down there, but it happened.
He started half back off in the third quarter, and then this is something that he just tried late with battle forward. So I lauded Chris Scott 2 weeks ago for what he did, but I think players like Jeremy Cameron, he knows how to play the wing. Dempsey can go forward. So they all understood what they were doing, whereas in this situation, Sam Mitchell, I think he just threw the magnets up and thought, I'm going to try some things, but to get Weddle into the game. But I think it's on Weddle to get a bit tougher, I think, because when he can run on the outside, he's great, but when he was stopped, I didn't think he had an answer.
Ultimately, the midfield fell short, and they've known that. That's why they're after Zach Merrett, and if not Zach Merrett, Zach Butters. They've had a crack at Harley Reid. If they get Merrett, and I do now expect them to get Merrett, Lordo, it's October 15 is the deadline trade day. I think he'll be a Hawk by that day, but where do you see them next year?
I like them. I think they'll be minimum prelim again. I know it's hard to know, but I think you add Will Day, who's their most important player, you add Zach Merrett, and you can get a full pre-season into Mitch Lewis, who had a wonderful first half. Well, then I don't think they're missing too much, the Hawks. So I'm really positive about that.
Yeah, good signs for them. Worries, according to you, for the Pies, and I think rightly so. Thanks for watching Access. Massive fallout out of prelim final weekend 2025. We'll be back next Monday to wrap up the big one, the grand final.